Hey YouTubers, this is the Roaming Prepper. Uh, as always, I try to take some time during the week and kind of see what's going on. Not just on the weekends, try to do it Tuesday, Wednesday, as offices and governments start moving again, just to see what's going on. And today I'm going to briefly touch on, at least for the US, Canada, and Mexico, the Keystone Pipeline and the drilling moratorium, what it is and how it can affect us as citizens, but also in the preparedness sense. So the Keystone Pipeline was intended to run from Canada through the U.S. to our refineries and bring us access to a set of very lucrative and available oil and gas resources in Canada. It would have benefited Canada as well as the U.S. as far as jobs and economics and whatnot. Because of environmental concerns, the incoming or the new administration has put a cancellation or moratorium on the continuation of that pipeline, which was approved by the previous administration. At the same time, President Biden and his administration are also implementing a moratorium on drilling permits on federal land. So that's supposed to start, I think, at 60 days, is what I'm hearing. They may extend it as they reevaluate what should or should not be drilled. But right now, it's kind of brought everything to a halt. So that's what those two things are. How does this affect us? Well, who does it hurt? It definitely hurts the states of New Mexico and Wyoming, who have a lot of federal land and receive a lot of funding from taxes for mineral rights on anything drilled in the federal lands that then goes through the state. So New Mexico in particular, I'm hearing it's going to affect educational funds and teachers funds. It was a big hit that I don't think they were quite expecting. And granted, the oil and gas part of the state probably said, well, you see, we told you, and the other side said no. But now they're seeing that sudden drop. And here we are coming out of 2020 with all the shutdowns, and they're suddenly having a chunk of their revenue come screeching to a halt. Wyoming's in a similar situation. It's also negatively affecting Canada. Obviously, they had a bunch of people on that side of the border aligned with getting product to the pipeline to bring to the States. That's not going to happen. Also, it's going to hurt emerging markets. How does that happen? Well, when you reduce the availability of oil and gas, so not only are you cutting off oil supply from Canada to the US that could then get exported elsewhere or around the US and Mexico, you're reducing the overall supply in the market, right? The general market, after billions of barrels of oil, you've just taken a chunk out. And more importantly, you've given the market a perception that you've taken a chunk out. So what that's going to do is drive the barrel of oil up, which is exactly what it did. As of today, it was almost $60. We have not seen that since actually even 6 months, a year before COVID. So granted, you don't want it going too high, it gets obnoxious, but having that sudden removal of a section of your supply does indeed bring the price up. Who else does it affect negatively? Well, now those emerging markets who are already struggling, most of them don't have the infrastructure they need. Their people, their companies, their governments are now paying more for gas, more for oil to import because the price has gone up. Because you took a chunk out way over here, you've reduced the overall supply in the market, and supply and demand goes up, and the price, which is the intersection of supply and demand, moves as well. So who did it help? Well, not every operator in the US of A is on federal land. A lot of states are on state land or private land. So I'm hearing different numbers between 85 and 90% of operators, independent operators in the US, are not operating on a federal lease or on private or state leases. So those guys are going to make out okay because the price of oil and gas will go up and benefit them. However, of course, their operating costs to get vehicles and drilling rigs and whatever back and forth is going to go up as well. So that's going to trickle down the food chain and affect ultimately the consumers at the end, which is all of us. Who else does it help? It helps China. Because China is always looking for new sources of oil and gas. And if we suddenly cut off what we plan to buy from Canada, Canada needs to sell it. They may well go to China to sell it. And now a strategic partner is selling oil to a strategic competitor because we're not taking the oil. A double-edged sword. So you protect the environmental concern, but you could introduce a national security concern. It depends how you view it. But the bottom line is, if the oil goes somewhere else or it just gets shut off or you take it off the market, the price is going to go up. Who else is going to get affected? Solar and wind and geothermal energy. Now, I'm a big fan as an energy guy. I'm not just oil and gas. I'm a big fan of diversity. Oil, gas, solar, whatever the case may be. They're going to make out okay because there's still a demand for electricity. So there'll be more of a demand for solar, wind, and geothermal and even nuclear produced energy. So they'll do well. So those are some of the groups that will benefit from this. But let's boil it down. What's the end result? What are we looking at as how is this going to affect day-to-day wellness of families and preparedness? Well, you're going to see oil and gas go up. You're going to see more of it being transported. So now we're going to have to import to the US, which is going to be done by train, by boat, and by existing pipelines, but mainly by train and boat. It's going to come in on tankers, which in and of themselves have a carbon footprint, which I think may be worse than the Keystone, because they're burning all the diesel to bring us fuel, which, it's unfortunate. Because the cost is going to go up, that's going to trickle down. So farmers are going to pay more. Factories are going to pay more. So their products will be more expensive. At the end of the day, it will trickle down to you, your family, paying for gas to get the kids to school, paying for groceries, the produce that is made, the cattle, beef, whatever you're buying, the cost will go up. So your dollar will be worth less versus the product you want. So what cost you $5 at some point in the past may now cost you 6 or 7. Also, the farmers are going to, from what I'm hearing, be paid to leave certain fields fallow, basically leave it unproduced, uncultivated, and that may introduce a supply and demand issue with food. But that'll be a whole separate discussion. So anyway, the bottom line is taking the Keystone out, although it may have environmental and other benefits, is adversely affecting multiple states as far as their revenue. It's also going to drive the price of oil and gas up and require that it be imported to the US and to a lot of other countries. That's going to bring up the cost of your preps and just the cost of your day-to-day living. So guys, expect that to be an issue going into 2021. You're going to see that devaluation of the dollar and possibly of the euro for those of you who are overseas, because you're going to have to pay more to get the products you need because the fuel prices are going up and it's going to trickle down. And solar, geothermal, and wind, although I'm a fan of diversity, as I said before, may not be able to close that gap. The technologies are just not there yet. In any case, guys, be aware. I'm seeing the prices of produce and food go up, and you guys probably will as well. So in any case, this is the Roaming Prepper. I do not have any trips this week, so I'm doing my research and getting some other paperwork done. But I wanted to share that with you. If you could like and subscribe, that would be awesome. I appreciate your time. I hope you got something out of my little spiel today. If you're on the road and traveling, Godspeed, and to everyone else, be safe, pay attention, and be ready. Thanks.